Every 73 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. This is not a dystopian horror story. This is the stark reality of our world today. A world where sexual violence is a horrifyingly common occurrence. A world where the innocent laughter of children is stifled by the monstrous act of rape. Let's take a moment to digest these figures. The National Sexual Violence Resource Center estimates that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be raped at some point in their lives in the United States alone. These numbers are staggering enough, but what's even more distressing is that these figures only represent the reported cases. Many victims, burdened by fear, shame, or a lack of faith in the justice system, never step forward to report their assault. In fact, according to RAINN, the Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network, an estimated 3 out of 4 sexual assaults go unreported. This means that the actual number of rape victims could be quadruple the number we see in official statistics. The situation is not much better globally. The World Health Organization reports that about 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced either physical and/or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. In countries like South Africa, a woman is murdered every 3 hours, many of whom are victims of sexual violence. This rise in rape cases is not just a statistic to be glanced over in a newspaper or a news feed. It signifies a deep-rooted problem in our society, a blatant disregard for human rights, and a lack of respect for the sanctity of consent. The challenge is not just the act itself, but also the aftermath. Victims of rape face severe physical, psychological, and social consequences. They struggle with trauma, fear, shame, and in many cases are ostracized by their own communities. What's even more alarming is the lack of severe consequences for the perpetrators. According to RAINN, out of 1,000 sexual assaults, only 5 culprits will end up in prison. This lack of justice only emboldens the offenders and perpetuates the cycle of violence. These numbers are not just statistics. They represent real people, real lives that are shattered. Each number is a person whose life has been irrevocably altered by an act of violence. It's high time we stop turning a blind eye to the severity of this issue and start taking action to prevent it. To illustrate the magnitude of this issue, let's delve into some real-life case studies. These instances not only underscore the severity of sexual violence, but also demonstrate how society and institutions are responding to this crisis. Let's start with the case of Heri Wirawan in Indonesia. Wirawan, a school teacher, was charged with sexually assaulting 13 students aged between 11 and 16, leading to the impregnation of at least 8 girls. This shocking revelation, coupled with a surge in similar cases, ultimately led to a significant reform in the country's laws. A new sexual violence bill was passed, expanding the definition of rape and providing support for victims. This case demonstrates the horrifying extent of sexual violence within educational institutions, places where children should feel safe and protected. However, the response from the Indonesian government, while necessary, also raises concerns. Advocates worry that the new law may not be sufficient to protect women, given the country's conservative views and the reluctance of leaders to address women's rights issues. The case of Heri Wirawan serves as a stark reminder that laws and policies are only as effective as their implementation, and the fight against sexual violence requires concerted, ongoing effort. Moving on to the United States, we see a different side of this issue. In Mississippi, House Speaker Philip Gunn stated that a 12-year-old impregnated by a family member should be required to carry the child to term, even without exceptions for incest or rape. This statement followed the reversal of Roe v. Wade and Mississippi's law banning abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The law does not provide exceptions for pregnancies resulting from incest or rape, signaling a troubling disregard for the victims of such heinous crimes. In contrast to this, however, we see a corporate response that seeks to support victims. Walmart, the largest private employer in the United States, expanded its healthcare coverage to include abortion under certain circumstances, such as health risks to the mother or cases of rape or incest. This move, while not a solution to the problem of sexual violence, represents a corporate response to the issue and a step towards supporting victims. These are just a few examples of the many untold stories around the world. They serve as a chilling reminder of the pervasiveness and severity of rape as a global issue, and the urgent need for comprehensive solutions that support victims and prevent further violence. The impact of rape extends far beyond the immediate act of violence. Much like the ripples in a pond after a stone is thrown, the effects of such a profound violation reverberate through a person's life, often in ways that are both unseen and unspoken. The psychological implications can be monumental. Victims frequently bear the weight of post-traumatic stress disorder, a condition characterized by persistent mental and emotional stress. They may relive the horrifying experience through flashbacks or nightmares, or feel detached and estranged from their everyday lives. Beyond PTSD, depression and anxiety are common companions of rape survivors. The world can become a place of constant fear and uncertainty, where trust in others is a luxury too costly to afford. The simple joy of living can be overshadowed by a lingering cloud of despair. The emotional toll is just as severe. Feelings of shame, guilt, and self-blame often plague victims. They may question their actions, their choices, their very worth. The assault not only violates their bodies, but also wreaks havoc on their self-esteem and self-worth. This emotional burden can lead to withdrawal from social activities, creating a crippling sense of isolation and loneliness. The physical consequences of rape should not be overlooked either. Beyond the immediate physical injury, victims may face ongoing health issues like sexually transmitted infections or unwanted pregnancies. The physical scars may heal with time, but they leave a lasting imprint on the victim's psyche. Sadly, due to societal stigma and fear of reprisal, many victims suffer in silence. They bear their pain alone, hidden away from the world that seems indifferent to their plight. This silence only magnifies their suffering, adding layers of isolation and helplessness to their ordeal. The trauma of rape can last a lifetime, affecting every aspect of a victim's life. It infiltrates their relationships, their work, their sense of safety, and their view of themselves. It's a life sentence, with no parole, for a crime they did not commit. It's a stark reminder that we, as a society, must do more to support victims and prevent such heinous acts. While the statistics are grim, there are steps that can be taken to prevent rape and support victims. The first step is consent education. This is not just about understanding when someone says no, it's also about recognizing when someone says yes. Consent is an enthusiastic, informed, and ongoing agreement between all participants in a sexual activity. It's not a one-time checkbox, but a continuous conversation. Next, we need to talk about bystander intervention training. This means learning the right strategies to safely intervene when you see potentially harmful situations. It's about understanding the signs of non-consensual behavior and having the courage to step in, speak up, or seek help when it's needed. The role of support services for victims cannot be overstated. These services provide medical, legal, and emotional assistance to survivors of rape. They are a lifeline for those in need, offering counseling, resources, and advocacy to help survivors navigate the aftermath of trauma. Everyone has a part to play in preventing rape and supporting survivors. Parents, educators, coaches, and peers can help by fostering a culture of respect and empathy. They can challenge harmful stereotypes, promote healthy relationships, and model consent in their own interactions. Employers, too, have a role. They can provide comprehensive healthcare coverage that respects the rights of all employees, like the recent initiative by Walmart. They can also foster safe and respectful workplaces where everyone feels valued and protected. Legislators and policymakers can enforce laws that protect survivors and hold perpetrators accountable. They can pass reforms like the one in Indonesia, which expanded the definition of rape and provided restitution and counseling for victims. And finally, each of us as individuals can make a difference. We can educate ourselves and others. We can stand up against victim blaming and slut shaming. We can listen to survivors, believe their stories, and support them in their healing. Change is possible when we all take responsibility and act together. As we wrap up this discussion, it's crucial to remember that we all have a role to play in addressing this issue. Each one of us can be a catalyst for change. It starts with education. We need to understand the importance of consent, the devastating impact of sexual violence, and the nuances of these issues that are often overlooked. Let's talk to our friends, our families, our communities, and spread the word. Let's challenge the stereotypes and misconceptions that perpetuate this problem. But education is not enough. We need to get involved, support local organizations that are tirelessly working to combat sexual violence. They need our time, our skills, and yes, our financial contributions. We also need to step up our advocacy. Let's push for more comprehensive laws and policies that protect victims and hold offenders accountable. Let's demand better from our leaders, our institutions, and ourselves. Remember, change starts with us. With our actions, our voices, our relentless pursuit of a safer, more just world. Together, we can create a world where these statistics are a thing of the past.